From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors these broadcasts. Our guest for this program is my friend Tom DeWeese, the founder and leader of the American Policy Center, who serves with me on the steering committee of the Coalition to Block the North American Union, and who's been outspoken on a great many other issues as well. Tom, one of your key concerns is about public-private partnerships. What are they?
Well, when we're talking about a North American Union and the Security and Prosperity Partnership, that partnership doesn't just apply to a partnership with Mexico, Canada, and the United States. It is also partnerships between private corporations, global corporations, and government. And this is one of the driving forces in putting this whole thing together. As we've talked before about the North American Union and the Trans-Texas Corridor being a means to just slide massive amounts of products from overseas into this country. And these corporations see this as a means to make a lot of money. Now, a lot of people are advocating that public-private partnerships are private enterprise, using the genius of private enterprise to help cut down the cost of government and make it more efficient and so forth.
Didn't Mussolini try this? Didn't he call it fascism?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I've gone a little farther and called this government-sanctioned monopolies. And the reason we say that is that these contracts that are made with the between the government and the corporations have things like no-compete clauses in them. It has what are called comprehensive development agreements, which guarantee certain returns to the corporations no matter what. And now we're talking about...
And who pays for those guarantees?
The guarantees are paid for by the consumer.
The consumer or the taxpayer?
Well, both. Both, and depending on the role they're playing at the point. For example, CINTRA, the Spanish company that has a contract with Texas Department of Transportation to build the Trans-Texas Corridor. They have a 50-year lease. They have a comprehensive development agreement there. They have a no-compete clause. They are guaranteed so much return on their investment. That means they can set the tolls as high as they want. There is no competition. Even the Department of Transportation
Even the
can't
Texas
build something.
legislature can't restrict it?
No, they cannot. They have signed an agreement that says that they will get this kind of return on their investment. And you know, the Texas Department of Transportation is willing to sell their soul on this because they tell their constituents that, well, this isn't going to cost you anything. But the truth of the matter is you're building a highway that is a quarter of a mile wide across Texas, and it goes straight up through the center of Texas.
And you have to take a great deal of private property by eminent domain to do that, don't you?
Over 500,000 acres are scheduled for this one highway, and there's other highways scheduled. It takes their property. This highway will have literally no overpasses. It is a quarter of a mile wide, and if you want to compare what that means, there is a 12-lane highway in Texas that is 350 feet wide. This is 1,200 feet wide.
So if people want to cross the street, they really can't do it.
They can't do it. And not only that, what it's doing is it is cutting whole communities in two. If there are no overpasses, police, fire, school buses, ambulances cannot get across it. And so they've cut it in two. And this is, again, a private corporation that is getting this kind of power. And when they do this, when this kind of a situation is set up, then the citizens, the constituents, have no recourse. They can't vote these people out of office because they're private corporations. They can't force the rates to be lowered in the voting booth and so forth. It's all done by contract.
Who could have stopped this?
Well, the Department of Transportation made the agreement, and if the state
the
legislature,
U.S. Department.
No, the State Department of Texas, and this is another thing. I've got a stack of letters from congressmen who write to me in response to our inquiries and so forth on this, and they say, we have checked with the Federal Department of Transportation and we find absolutely no evidence of anything like this happening. Oh yeah, because they're doing it through the state departments of transportation, not the federal. The state legislature could have stopped it in the beginning, but in the beginning the Texas governor, Perry, told the legislators, this is just a highway improvement project. It has nothing to do with a NAFTA super corridor or anything like that. And for the first year when we began to fight this thing, this is what the Texas Department of the Texas legislators were telling their constituents. Then they found out otherwise. And within a year, there was a massive movement to get a moratorium on the highway, to stop it so they could have more discussion, understand what was going on. And an overwhelming majority of Texas legislators voted in favor of that moratorium, but then Governor Rick Perry maneuvered, threatened, blackmailed, anything he could do to make sure that there were no teeth in that moratorium. But today there is a huge movement to stop it.
What happens when it goes north of Texas?
When it goes north of Texas, it crosses into Oklahoma. And it goes from Oklahoma on into Kansas, into what's called the Kansas City Smart Port, and literally
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. This is the first place where there is any place for it to stop, when a container comes into.
And the Kansas City government voted money for this, did they not?
They did. They put over $1 million into it. And
how could they have been so foolish?
Well, they still believe this is just the greatest thing since sliced bread. They see all this industry coming in, all this business coming in through it. They negotiated. They were so desperate to have it. They negotiated in secret with the Mexican government that is now literally Mexican ground. So you have trucks coming across the Mexican border from Lázaro Cárdenas, the port, into Kansas City, where the first place where it stops, into a Mexican territory where Mexican government officials check the trucks. And then from there they go on across the country or on into Canada.
So we've already surrendered some of our self-determination and accountability of our institutions.
We have, because there is, with these public-private partnerships, there is no accountability. The contract was signed by the government, and you know, you can vote out the people who were responsible for that.
How did you become aware of this and become involved in this issue?
Well, I really, the first inkling I had of it were articles by Jerome Corsi, and of course Phyllis Schlafly put some out, yourself, and it just kind of all came together very quickly. And the interesting thing about that is that people asked me when I saw it, "Aren't you shocked by this?" And I said, "No, I'm not," because I have been working for the last 15 years on an issue called Sustainable Development, Agenda 21 out of the United Nations. The UN's Council on Global Governance put out a report called Our Global Neighborhood, and that called for the creation of unions in European Union, North American Union, South American Union, African Union, so on and so forth. A series of these unions, I think there's like 11 of them that they're talking about. These countries give up their sovereignty, give up their national identity, give up their currencies, and so forth. It's just a short step then to giving up everything.
Explain what you mean by sustainable development.
Well, sustainable development is the policy outlined in the what is a soft law policy called Agenda 21. A soft law meaning that it is done voluntarily. Countries accept this and begin to implement it. But sustainable development is a top-down control of literally our entire lives. The logo for sustainable development has 3 circles connected. It's kind of like the Olympic circles. And one of those is social equity. Social equity is every aspect of our lives. It is how many children we can have in our home, the kind of foods we can eat. Sustainable development says that the environment controls.
Sounds like Barack Obama's agenda.
It is exactly Obama's agenda, and he's calling for this sort of thing to be in place. But it also is George Bush's agenda, and he has been responsible for putting it in place. President Clinton, when he was president, put together the President's Council on Sustainable Development.
Are there no critics in Congress?
There are so few people in Congress who even understand the concept. Sustainable development is the policy that is literally, it's a federal policy. It is the policy of almost every state in the Union and almost every single community in the Union. They are putting it in place in city councils and so forth. And what you have is an army of what are called NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And they have, Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy groups like this that have members on the local level. They know that there's a series of grants available to put these things in place from the federal government, and if a city council says, no, we're not interested in that policy, they will then begin to spread the word through their community that your elected officials are stealing $1 million of grant money from us. That sort of thing.
Stay with us, and when we come back, we'll learn more from Tom DeWeese, the head of the American Policy Center. We'll be right back. The very first clause in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, immediately following the preamble, asserts that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States consisting of a Senate and a House of Representatives. All legislative powers, that means you cannot give other entities the power to legislate, not the United Nations or the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund or the federal judiciary or regulatory agencies or federally funded private organizations. If you're going to stick to the Constitution, only the Congress can make policy, and the Conservative Caucus works to assure that Congress will more nearly conform to the Constitution.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org, 703-938-9626.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper, and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors Conservative Roundtable, now being broadcast in 122 communities across America. And we're pleased to have as our guest Tom DeWeese, the head of the American Policy Center, who's been a leader in defending private property rights, opposing the North American Union, Security and Prosperity Partnership, etc. Give us some more examples of private-public partnerships. We talked about CINTRA. What are some others?
Yeah. Well, there is a major move on across the country, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the Indiana Toll Road, some highways in Chicago, the Pocahontas Highway here in Virginia. All these things are coming under these public-private partnerships. They actually have meetings between government agents and their representatives and global corporations talking about availability of money and so forth. Most of it is foreign money to invest in these things. The governor of Pennsylvania is a major proponent of this. And in the SPP effort alone in Canada, one of the things they're looking at there through public-private partnerships are getting control of Canadian water and shipping it down the Trans-Texas Corridor and through the pipelines into southwest United States and into Mexico. And this is something that the Canadian public isn't voting on.
People in the East do not appreciate the extent to which water is a phenomenally important issue in Western states. In California, it's a big factor in their campaigns, et cetera.
Sure, yeah, it is. And California gets it from Colorado for the most part, and so forth. And it is a very big issue. And so these corporations are looking at these kinds of things. Canada has a lot of water. And so they're looking to control that and send it down the pipeline for profit to where they want to send it. Well, the Canadians may find out someday they got a shortage of water because of all this. In the same vein, corporations are moving in to take over water treatment facilities in communities. Communities are literally selling their infrastructures to public-private partnerships with the hopes that these corporations will spend their own money to put into it, and then they don't have to go to the taxpayers for the money. But again, the problem with that is that the taxpayers don't have any say. These corporations get contracts with no-compete clauses, with guarantees of returns, and the voters will find out that they have lost control of their government.
So we no longer have representative republicanism, small r, in America. We have rule by the elites.
It's moving very
covertly,
very quickly that way. An editorial in the Wall Street Journal just said that when you get into the Fannie Mae and the Freddie Mac issue, here again, you had basically a partnership between mortgage companies and the government, and you have them. These private corporations are protected by the media, by liberal Democrats, by conservative, or by.
Did you read that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have paid countless millions of dollars to lobbyists, many of them on the left? Jesse Jackson made a fortune from these two organizations.
Certain members of Congress tried to hold hearings to talk about this. Those hearings were stopped. The lobbyists were crawling all over Capitol Hill. And again, you have this mixture of the news media giving them a free ride. This is the chosen policy. You have the liberal Democrats. You have the country club Republicans all together working on this. These are public-private partnerships, and this is how it operates. It is not free enterprise. It is not limited government in any way, shape, or form. It is corporate fascism and government-sanctioned monopolies.
Tom, one of the big problems we have is penetrating the public consciousness. And there used to be a diversity in journalism where avowedly, openly, newspapers were owned by political candidates, friends of parties, and while that may sound shocking, the press was much freer. Today you have a partisan press, but the strings attached to every newspaper, television, and radio station, especially television and newspapers, are seldom disclosed. How do we break that wall of silence?
Well, I think that technology is going to take care of a lot of it. We have been successful in this fight so far. I think we have been successful in the fight against the North American Union, the SPP.
You see where Robert Pastor lamented
yes.
the future in a current article in Foreign Affairs magazine, the magazine of the Council on Foreign Relations. Frankly, I think they're playing possum. I don't think it's dead at all. I think they just want to lull us to sleep. But nonetheless, clearly your efforts, mine, the Conservative Caucus, your organization, Jerry Corsi, Phyllis Schlafly, John McManus, all of these efforts have given them a wall of resistance that they did not expect.
Yeah, absolutely true. And maybe they're playing possum. Maybe they aren't as down and out as they are trying to let on to be. But the fact of the matter is our efforts have had an effect. They do have meaning. And we have succeeded. And the word they use all the time is exposure. Our efforts have been exposed. That's what we did. And when you're talking about a policy that is changing the very structure of our country, to say you want to do it in secret and nobody know about it.
The amazing thing is members of our staff have visited senators and representatives in Congress and their staff members, and they profess total skepticism of what is the clear fact. They confess total ignorance. How can they be so dumb, so ignorant, so unwilling to acknowledge reality?
Their pocketbooks, I believe, is the answer to everything. It's always been follow the money. There is, you're talking again here about corporate, international corporations that have massive amounts of money who see this country ripe for the plucking, and they pour donations into the pockets of these politicians to look the other way, to act dumb, to ignore it, to allow the progress to go on. But again, because of the internet, because of a whole network of ways that we get our information out, even without the internet or the national media having anything there to work with, we have gotten this message out, and people are outraged by it, and it is having an effect.
Of course, they're shocked when they write letters to their members on Capitol Hill who say, this is nonsense, this is a myth, this is not true. So it raises doubts in their minds. And what we have to do is put out advertisements and flyers and press releases which simply say Congressman so-and-so is a damn ignorant fool because he is unwilling to recognize reality. But being informed is something which is the duty of every citizen who values his liberty. How do you stay informed? I know you look at the internet, but how do you develop a level of expertise on issues of concern? What do you read?
Well, after 40 years of doing what I'm doing what you're doing, you build up an awful lot of connections on things. But I do read, go through the internet. I do a lot of Google searches on issues. We read the bills, which is a rarity. I actually read the newspaper. The newspaper tells me a lot.
Which newspapers do you read?
The main one that I read is the Washington Times. I read the Washington Post, and I come away feeling very empty. And so I read the Times and supplement that with a lot of...
I read a number of newspapers. I acquired the habit when I was about 11 years old and read a great many magazines. I find that as left-wing, as liberal as it is, the newspaper that covers the most information is the New York Times. There's stuff in the Times you cannot get anyplace else. Recently, Alexander Solzhenitsyn died, the greatest man of the 20th century, in my view. And they had what I guess was a 3-page obituary in the New York Times. And there was so much in that obituary that one could not find anywhere else. It was not in the Associated Press. It was not in the Washington Post. It was not in the Washington Times. And it had information in it that was so important, so valuable. And I try to share such things with members of my family and make sure that they're doing the reading. There's an old saying, leaders are readers, readers are leaders. If you're not willing to spend 3 or 4 hours every day reading, you cannot be an effective citizen.
I agree with you. I mean, you cannot get it all in sound bites. You certainly can't get your news from the Comedy Channel. You've got to understand what some of these things mean, these policies. I gave a speech the other day, and I made a point in it that people don't listen to policy statements. They don't understand policy statements. It's not so much the policy that is important, it's what the policy does. And that is when they begin to react to it, and they feel the effects of it.
Well, the government schools have succeeded in dumbing down generations of Americans. And they no longer know the real history of this country. They do not know the principles in which it was founded. In my latest newsletter, I'm doing an article about the death penalty and where it should be applied at the federal level. Originally, there were just 3 federal crimes: piracy, counterfeiting, and treason. Now there are 4,500 federal crimes, as the federal government has usurped areas that were properly left to the states and localities. We have to take a break. We're going to have some last words from Tom DeWeese when we get back. This man has a lot to teach everyone watching this program, and I hope you'll pay attention to how you can get in touch with him and support his work. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Congressman Tom Tancredo. You know, I just returned from a hearing on the southern border in a place called Brownsville, Texas. One of the participants in the hearing told us that for them, a border really doesn't exist between the United States and Mexico. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people have that attitude, that there are no such things as borders, that they really don't matter, that they're just lines on a map and nobody should pay attention to them, and that we're all just residents of the North American continent. Well, you know what? That's baloney. It's baloney, but only if you will do something about it to prove to the people of this country, and especially to your elected officials, that you know borders matter, that you know the sovereignty of this country is at risk, and that you will take action to make sure that they understand it. That action is best taken by calling your local talk radio stations, writing letters to the editor, and of course, letting members of Congress know that you know. That's the best thing. They're hoping, as a matter of fact, that no one really picks up on this issue of a North American trade association that essentially eliminates borders. But the fact is it's happening. You can see parts of it all of the time. So it's something that we need to stop. America, and I mean the United States of America, not the continent, but the United States of America is at stake. Do your part.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors these broadcasts, now being shown all over America in 122 communities. If you are interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, please check out our website, www.conservativeusa.org. If you'd like to receive on a complimentary basis some of our publications, fax your name and address at 703-281-4108. Tom DeWeese, how do people get in touch with you?
We have our website, which is americanpolicy.org. On that site, you'll find all kinds of articles, issues that we've been talking about here, plus more. You can sign up for our action alert system there by email. And we're in Warrenton, Virginia. We're the American Policy Center. And our phone number is 540-341-8911.
Tom, you're a hardworking man. You have a constant output of newsletters, commentaries, you run conferences, etc. We've got a little bit less than 2 minutes left. What message would you deliver in the time remaining?
Well, I want your viewers to know that when they hear the term public-private partnerships, or they hear the term sustainable development, or they hear the term going green, none of these things are good. Public-private partnerships will be sold in your local community as free enterprise, as an inexpensive way to get infrastructure done in your community and so forth. But what it really is corporate fascism and government-sanctioned monopolies, and they need to fight these things with everything they've got.
Tom, tell us a little bit about the conference you just ran.
Our Freedom 21 conference, it was the 9th annual Freedom 21 conference. Freedom 21 was set up to oppose the UN's soft law policy Agenda 21 and to make free market solutions, freedom solutions to that policy.
Tom DeWeese, you do great work. I hope people will support the American Policy Center to enable you to keep doing that good work.
I appreciate it,
Thanks for being our guest.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Conservative Roundtable.